had worked as a planetary surveyor for the Galactic Council for nearly 40 cycles. He had studied hundreds of worlds. He had seen planets covered in ice and planets burning with fire. He had cataloged species that breathed methane and species that lived in pure darkness. Nothing surprised him anymore. Or so he thought. He sat in his small office aboard the Council research station, surrounded by floating screens filled with data. His four fingers moved quickly across the controls as he pulled up information about a new species that had recently made contact with the galactic community. The species called themselves humans. They came from a small blue planet at the edge of a quiet spiral arm. The planet was called Earth. His job was simple. He had to review all biological and geological data about new species before they could be considered for Council membership. Most species came from stable worlds with calm weather and gentle environments. Most species evolved slowly over millions of years on planets that supported life easily. He opened the first file about Earth and began reading. The planet was mostly water. That was normal. The atmosphere contained oxygen and nitrogen, also normal. The gravity was a bit strong, but nothing too unusual. The temperature range seemed acceptable for carbon-based life. Nodded to himself, everything looked standard so far. Then he opened the geological history file. His reading slowed, his large eyes grew wider. He leaned closer to the screen, certain he was misreading the data. "That cannot be correct," he whispered to himself. He closed the file and opened it again. The numbers remained the same. According to the data, Earth had experienced 5 major extinction events in its history. 5 events where most life on the planet had been completely wiped out. 5 times where everything had nearly ended. Sat back in his chair, his thin body trembled slightly. 5 extinction events on a single planet, and yet life had continued, and yet an intelligent species had still emerged. He had never seen anything like this. Most planets in the galactic database had experienced 0 extinction events. Some unlucky worlds had experienced one, and those species always carried deep trauma in their cultures. They built monuments to the dead. They created religions around survival. They feared the stars. But 5 complete catastrophes. Pulled up more detailed information. His hands shook as he read. The first extinction event happened over 400 million years ago. Something had changed the chemistry of the oceans. 85% of all species had died. The second came about 50 million years later. Ice had covered most of the planet. 70% of life had ended. The third was the worst. It happened about 250 million years ago. Massive volcanic eruptions had poisoned the air and boiled the seas. 96% of all species had been destroyed. 96%. Had to read that number 3 times before he believed it. The fourth extinction took 75% of life. The fifth, caused by an asteroid impact, had killed the dominant species of the time and 75% of everything else. Stood up from his chair, he walked in small circles around his office, trying to calm himself. This was impossible. No planet could experience this much destruction and still produce intelligent life. The odds were astronomical. The mathematics simply did not work. He returned to his computer and searched for more data. Perhaps there was an error. Perhaps some researcher had entered the wrong information. But the more he searched, the worse it got. Between the major extinction events, there were smaller disasters. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanic winters that blocked out the sun. Asteroid impacts that created craters hundreds of kilometers wide. Diseases that killed millions. Climate shifts that changed everything. And through all of it, life on Earth had continued. Not just continued, but adapted, evolved, grown stronger. Found records of the current dominant species, the humans. They had only existed for about 300,000 years. In that short time, they had nearly gone extinct themselves at least once. Their population had dropped to perhaps 10,000 individuals at some point. 10,000, that was not a civilization. That was barely a village. And yet they had survived. They had spread across their entire planet. They had built cities and developed technology. They had reached into space and found the galactic community. Sat down again, his legs felt weak. He needed to understand this better. He needed to speak with these humans directly. There was something deeply wrong with this species, or perhaps there was something deeply right. He could not tell which. He sent a formal request to the Council diplomatic office. He needed to meet with human representatives. He needed to ask them questions. He needed to hear from their own mouths how they had survived on a planet that seemed determined to kill them. The response came within an hour. Two human representatives would meet with him the next day. Their names were listed one was an ambassador, the other a scientist. Spent the rest of the day reviewing more files. He found information about human biology and gasped at what he read. They could survive extreme temperatures. They could heal from wounds that would kill most species. They could function without sleep for days. They could eat plants and animals that were poisonous to other beings. Everything about them spoke of adaptation to crisis. Everything about them whispered of survival through nightmare. He also found something called human history, the record of their civilization. He expected to find stories of peace and careful progress like most species had. Instead, he found wars, thousands of wars, huge wars and small wars, wars that lasted years and wars that ended in days, wars fought with sticks and wars fought with nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, they had built weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they had actually used them, twice. Closed the file, he could not read anymore. What kind of species builds weapons that can end all life on their world? What kind of species uses such weapons and then continues living as if nothing happened? He tried to sleep that night, but rest would not come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the numbers: 96% extinction, 5 major events, wars fought with planet-killing weapons. Tomorrow he would meet these humans. Tomorrow he would look into their eyes and try to understand how they could exist at all. He was a surveyor who had seen hundreds of worlds. Nothing had ever frightened him before. But tonight, alone in his quarters, felt fear for the first time in 40 cycles. The humans were coming, and he was not sure the galaxy was ready for them. The meeting room was small and plain. A round table sat in the center with chairs designed to fit different body types. Soft light came from panels in the ceiling. Had chosen this room on purpose. He wanted a simple space with no distractions. He needed to focus completely on the humans. He arrived early and sat down to wait. His notes floated on a small screen in front of him. He had prepared dozens of questions, but now they all seemed inadequate. How do you ask a species to explain the impossible? The door opened. 2 figures walked in and felt his breath catch in his throat. They were tall, much taller than he had expected from the files. The male walked in front with confident steps. His shoulders were broad and his movements were smooth. He smiled as he entered, showing white teeth that looked too sharp for a civilized species. This was the ambassador. Behind him came the female. She was slightly shorter but moved with the same easy confidence. She carried a small device in her hands and looked around the room with quick, intelligent eyes. Her face was calm, almost peaceful. They did not look like survivors of 5 extinction events. They did not look traumatized or afraid. They looked comfortable, relaxed, as if meeting an alien species was something they did every day. "Good morning," said. His voice was warm and friendly. "You must be researcher. Thank you for inviting us." Stood up quickly, perhaps too quickly. He nearly knocked over his chair. Yes, I am. Please, sit down." The humans took their seats across from him. Up close could see details he had missed at first, the tiny scars on his hands, the small lines around his eyes, signs of lives lived hard and long. "I appreciate you meeting with me," said. He tried to keep his voice steady. "I am reviewing Earth's data for your council membership application. I have some questions." "Of course," said. She set her device on the table. "We are happy to help. What would you like to know?" Looked down at his notes. All his carefully prepared questions seemed foolish now. He decided to start with the most important one. "I have been studying your planet's history," he said slowly, "specifically your geological and biological records. I found something that concerns me." The humans waited. They did not seem worried. "According to my data, Earth has experienced multiple extinction events, major events where most life was destroyed." Nodded. "That is correct. Can you tell me how many extinction events your planet has experienced?" This was the key question. Wanted to hear it from them. He wanted to watch their faces as they answered. Glanced at something passed between them. Was it fear, shame, trauma? No, it was amusement. They looked amused. Turned back to and tilted his head slightly. "I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. Are you asking about extinction events this week or the total throughout history?" Felt the room spin around him. "This week," he repeated. The words barely came out. Laughed softly. It was a gentle sound, but to it was terrifying. "He is joking," she said. "We have not had any extinction events this week. Things have been fairly quiet lately." Fairly quiet lately, as if extinction events were weather patterns, as if planetary catastrophes were just another thing to schedule around. The total managed to say, I am asking about the total. Ah leaned back in his chair. Well, that depends on how you define extinction event. If we are talking about the big five, where more than 70% of species died, then yes, 5 events, but there have been many smaller events as well. Ice ages, volcanic winters, that sort of thing. That sort of thing, repeated weakly. Opened her device and pulled up a screen. Would you like specific dates and details? I have all the information here. The Ordovician extinction was about 445 million years ago. Then the late Devonian about 375 million years ago. The Permian extinction was the big one, about 250 million years ago. That was rough. Ruff stared at her. 96% of all life died. Yes, agreed. As I said, it was rough, but life recovered. It always does. Nodded. The Permian extinction actually led to the rise of the dinosaurs, so something good came from it in the end. Could not believe what he was hearing. These creatures discussed the near-total destruction of their world as if they were talking about a difficult harvest season. There was no horror in their voices, no grief, no trauma. Do these events not disturb you? Asked. Does your species not mourn the countless lives lost? The humans exchanged another look. I think I understand your confusion, said gently. These events happened millions of years before humans existed. We learned about them through science, through studying rocks and fossils. They are history to us, important history, but still just history. But your own species nearly went extinct, pressed. 70,000 years ago, your population dropped to almost nothing. The genetic bottleneck, said nodding. Yes, some researchers believe our ancestors went through a very difficult period, possibly due to a volcanic eruption. Population may have dropped to between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals. And this does not frighten you? Considered the question. It is interesting to think about. If things had gone differently, we would not be here today, but our ancestors survived, they adapted, they kept going. That is what we do. That is what we do, the words echoed in his mind. I have read about your history, he said, your civilization's history. You have had wars, many wars. You have built weapons capable of destroying your planet. Nuclear weapons, said. Yes, we developed those about 80 years ago. And you used them. Twice in war, his face became more serious. That was a dark time, we learned from it. Learned what? That we must be careful with power, that destruction is easy but building is hard, that we cannot let fear and hatred control us. Lined forward, but you still have these weapons, you still keep them. Some nations do, admitted. It is complicated, political, but we have not used them since those 2 times. We have created treaties and agreements. We work to reduce their numbers. Yet you came close to using them again. I read about something called the Cold War. The humans were quiet for a moment. Yes, finally said, we came close, several times, but we pulled back. We chose not to destroy ourselves. Why? Asked. Why would you create such weapons if you did not intend to use them? Fear, said simply. We created them out of fear. We feared what others might do to us. We feared being weak. It was not wise, but it was very human. Sat back, his mind was overwhelmed with information. These creatures had survived 5 extinction events. They had nearly destroyed themselves with their own weapons. They had faced death countless times in countless ways. And yet here they sat, calm and smiling, ready to join the galactic community. One more question, said. How do you keep going after everything? How do you face each day knowing what has happened and what could happen? Smiled. It was a warm smile, but there was something ancient behind it. Something that had seen darkness and chosen light anyway. Because tomorrow might be better, he said, and if it is not, then we will make the day after that better. We do not give up, researcher, we never give up. Looked at these 2 humans, these survivors of impossible odds, and realized something important. He was not just afraid of them. He was in awe of them. Requested a second meeting the next day. He needed more information. He needed to understand exactly what Earth had endured and how humans had come to accept it so easily. This time came prepared. She brought a larger device with detailed presentations. Charts and graphs floated in the air between them. Images of ancient Earth appeared and disappeared as she spoke. Sat beside her, occasionally adding comments. They both seemed happy to share their planet's violent history. They spoke about death and destruction the way other species might discuss poetry or art. Let me start from the beginning, said. Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. For the first several hundred million years, it was constantly being hit by asteroids and comets. The surface was molten rock, nothing could survive. An image appeared showing a red and orange planet covered in fire. Nodded slowly. Eventually things cooled down, continued. Oceans formed, simple life appeared, but things were still dangerous. The sun was different then. The atmosphere had no oxygen. If you or I traveled back to that time, we would die instantly. That seems standard for early planetary formation, said. Yes, but then things got interesting. Changed the image. The planet now looked in white. About 2.4 billion years ago, we had what we call the Great Oxidation Event. Simple organisms started producing oxygen. This was poison to most life at the time. A massive extinction occurred. Most species died. Made a note, so there was an extinction event before the 5 major ones. Several actually, but we usually do not count those in the official list. Smiled as if she had told a joke. There have been at least 20 major extinction events in Earth's history, depending on how you define them. The big 5 are just the most famous. 20 wrote the number down. His hand trembled. Let me go through the main ones, said. The first of the big 5 was the Ordovician extinction. This happened about 445 million years ago. A gamma ray burst from a nearby star may have stripped away part of our atmosphere. Ice covered most of the planet. 85% of marine species died. She said this calmly, as if describing a mild storm. Next came the late Devonian extinction, about 375 million years ago. This one was slower. It happened over millions of years. Oxygen levels in the ocean dropped. 75% of species disappeared. Another image showed dead fish floating in dark water. Then came the Permian extinction. This was the big one. His voice became slightly more serious. 252 million years ago, massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia. The eruptions lasted for about 2 million years. They released so much carbon dioxide that the oceans became acidic. The temperature rose dramatically. 96% of all species died. Felt sick, 96%. How could anything survive? Some species found ways, said. Life always finds a way. Small creatures hiding in caves, fish in deep ocean vents, tough little survivors that refused to die. Nodded. The recovery took about 10 million years, but eventually new species appeared, new forms of life. The dinosaurs evolved from the survivors of the Permian extinction. She changed the image again, now saw large creatures with long necks and massive bodies. The dinosaurs ruled Earth for about 165 million years. They were very successful, many different species, many different sizes. Paused. Then came the 4th major extinction about 201 million years ago. More volcanic eruptions, another collapse of ecosystems. 80% of species died. But the dinosaurs survived that one, added. They were tough. Yes, they survived that one, smiled sadly, but not the 5th. The image changed to show a bright streak across a dark sky. 66 million years ago, an asteroid about 10 kilometers wide hit what is now Mexico. The impact created a crater 150 kilometers across. The energy released was equivalent to billions of nuclear weapons exploding at once. Stared at the image. He had seen asteroid impacts before in his surveys. They were always devastating, but this scale was beyond anything he had recorded. The impact threw debris into the atmosphere. Fires spread across entire continents. Then came the darkness. Dust and ash blocked the sun for months, maybe years. Plants died. Animals that ate plants died. Animals that ate those animals died. 75% of all species went extinct, including the dinosaurs. Except for some, said. Birds are actually dinosaurs. They survived. They are still here. Nodded. And small mammals survived, our ancestors. They were tiny creatures hiding in burrows, eating insects and seeds. They made it through the darkness. She turned off the presentation. The images disappeared, leaving the room feeling empty. After the dinosaurs died, mammals evolved to fill their place. Over millions of years, primates appeared, then early humans. About 300,000 years ago, our species emerged, spread her hands, and here we are. Sat in silence for a long moment. His notes were covered with numbers, death tolls, percentages, time spans. You said there were events beyond the big 5, he finally said. What else? Glanced at, he nodded. Ice ages, she said, many ice ages. Sometimes the entire planet was covered in ice. We call it snowball Earth. This happened several times before complex life evolved. Volcanic events, added. Massive eruptions that blocked the sun for years, changed the climate, killed crops, started famines. Asteroid impacts continued. The one that killed the dinosaurs was the biggest recent one, but there have been many smaller impacts. Some wiped out regional populations, changed weather patterns. Disease said, his voice was quiet. Plagues that killed millions of humans. One disease about 700 years ago killed perhaps half the population of some regions. And more recently said, we have created our own dangers, nuclear weapons, climate change, pollution. We almost destroyed ourselves several times in the last century alone. Put down his writing tool, he could not take any more notes. How, he asked, the question came out as almost a whisper. How do you live knowing all of this? How do you wake up each morning? The humans looked at each other. Something passed between them again. This time recognized it. It was not amusement. It was not arrogance. It was love, love for each other, love for their world, love for life itself. Because each day is a gift, said softly. Every sunrise is a miracle, every breath is a victory. We know how easily it could all end. We have seen it end again and again, but life continues. We continue. We do not ignore the past, added. We study it, we learn from it, we try to do better, but we do not let fear stop us from living. Looked at these two strange creatures from their violent world. They had survived things that would have destroyed any other species he had ever studied. They had faced extinction over and over again. And they had won every single time. There is a saying on Earth, said, what does not kill us makes us stronger. Thought about that for a long time. Finally, he understood. Humans were not survivors despite their planet's violence. They were survivors because of it. The Grand Council chamber was the largest room on the station. Its ceiling stretched high above, decorated with lights that represented every star system in the Alliance. Representatives from 47 species sat in curved rows facing the central platform where speakers presented their findings. Had never spoken to the full council before. His job was quiet research, not public presentations. But the council leaders had demanded a report on the new species from Earth and was the only one who had studied them in detail. He stood on the platform now, looking up at hundreds of alien faces. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no faces at all, just sensory organs that detected light and sound. All of them were watching him. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, began. His voice echoed in the large chamber. I have been asked to present my findings on the species known as humans from the planet Earth. A large screen behind him displayed an image of Earth. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses. Earth is a medium-sized planet in an unremarkable star system. At first examination, it appears suitable for life but not exceptional. Paused. However, my research has revealed something deeply unusual about this world. He changed the image. A timeline appeared showing Earth's history. This planet has experienced more extinction events than any other inhabited world in our database. Not one, not two. At least 5 major extinction events where more than 70% of all life was destroyed. Additionally, there have been numerous smaller catastrophic events throughout the planet's history. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several representatives leaned forward in their seats. I will be honest, said, when I first discovered this data, I believed it was an error. No planet in our records has experienced this level of destruction while still producing intelligent life. The probability seemed impossible. He displayed images from his meetings with the humans, and appeared on the screen, their strange, flat faces looking out at the council. I met with human representatives to discuss these findings. What I learned disturbed me even more than the data itself. The chamber was completely silent now. The humans are aware of their planet's violent history. They study it, they teach it to their young. Let that sink in, but they do not fear it. They do not seem traumatized by it. When I asked their ambassador how many extinction events Earth had experienced, he asked me a clarifying question. Put the quote on the screen for everyone to read. He asked, do you mean this week or total? Gasps and chirps and clicks filled the chamber. Representatives turned to each other in confusion and alarm. He was joking, explained, but the joke itself is revealing. Humans treat extinction events as normal, as something that happens regularly, as part of life. A tall representative from the system stood up. Researcher, are you saying this species has normalized planetary catastrophe? Yes, council member, that is exactly what I am saying. Another representative, a small creature covered in blue fur, raised a manipulator arm. How is this possible? Any species that experience such trauma would be permanently damaged. They would be consumed by fear. One would expect so, agreed, but humans are different. They have evolved to process trauma in ways we do not fully understand. They acknowledge danger, prepare for it, but do not let it prevent them from acting. They call this quality resilience. He changed the display again. Now it showed human achievements, cities and bridges, spacecraft and satellites, art and music. Despite their planet's attempts to kill them, humans have built a complex civilization. They have developed advanced technology. They have created art and literature and philosophy. They have reached into space and found us. A murmur of grudging respect passed through some sections of the chamber. But I must warn the council, continued, there is more. He displayed images of human weapons, tanks and missiles and nuclear explosions. Humans have also developed weapons of extraordinary destructive power. They have created devices capable of rendering their entire planet uninhabitable, and they have used these weapons against each other. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions and concerns. Several tried to speak at once. Order, the council speaker, a massive crystalline being that communicated through vibrations, pulsed for silence. Let the researcher continue. Waited for quiet. Humans have fought thousands of wars throughout their history. They have killed millions of their own kind, yet they continue. They rebuild, they move forward. He paused to let this information settle. I believe this presents the council with a difficult choice. On one side, humans are survivors of unprecedented hardship. They possess qualities that no other species in the Alliance has demonstrated. Their resilience, their adaptability, their refusal to surrender could be valuable assets. Several council members nodded. On the other side, they are also deeply dangerous. Their capacity for violence is extreme. Their weapons could threaten any world. Their history shows they are willing to use force without hesitation. He turned off the display. The screen went dark. I cannot recommend for or against human membership in the council. I can only present the facts. Humans are unlike anything we have encountered before. They are survivors of a world that has tried to kill them over and over again. They have emerged from fire and ice and darkness, and they keep going. Looked across the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. The question the council must answer is this: do we want such a species as our allies, or do we fear them too much to let them join us? The council speaker pulsed again. Thank you, researcher. We will now open discussion. What followed was the longest debate in council history. Representatives argued for hours. Some demanded that humans be rejected immediately. They were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. Their planet had made them into something terrible. Others disagreed. They pointed out that humans had not started any conflicts with other species. Their violence had been directed at themselves, not at others. Perhaps joining the galactic community would give them new purpose, new direction. They survived 96% extinction, one representative argued. What could we possibly threaten them with? They would make unstoppable allies. Or unstoppable enemies, another countered. What happens when they turn that survival instinct against us? The debate went on and on. No clear consensus emerged. Finally, a small representative from a species known for their wisdom raised a question that silenced everyone. We keep asking what humans might do to us, they said, but perhaps we should ask a different question. What might they do for us? The chamber fell quiet. Every species in this alliance has faced hardship. Every world has its dangers, but none of us has faced what humans have faced. None of us has their experience with survival. The wise representative looked around the chamber. Perhaps instead of fearing humans, we should learn from them. Perhaps their greatest value is not what they can do in war, but what they can teach us about surviving the worst the universe can offer. The council speaker pulsed for attention. We will continue this discussion tomorrow. For now, we must rest and consider what we have learned. As representatives filed out of the chamber, remained on the platform, he looked at the empty screen where Earth had been displayed. Tomorrow the council would decide humanity's fate. They would be accepted or rejected, welcomed or turned away. But standing there in the empty chamber, already knew what his recommendation would be. The galaxy needed humans, it just did not know it yet. The second day of debate began with even more tension than the first. Representatives arrived early, their positions hardened overnight. Two clear factions had formed. One wanted humans rejected from the council permanently, the other wanted them accepted immediately. The council speaker pulsed for silence. Before we continue our debate, we have received a request. The human representatives wish to address the council directly. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Representatives turned to each other in surprise. This is unusual, a voice called out. Applicant species do not speak during membership debates. The humans have invoked an ancient right, the speaker replied. They claim they can offer something to the council that has not been considered. The rules allow them to present this offer before a final vote. After a brief discussion, the council agreed. The humans would be allowed to speak. The chamber doors opened and walked in together, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. They were small compared to many of the alien representatives, but they moved with quiet confidence. They did not seem intimidated by the hundreds of eyes watching them. They reached the central platform and stood where had stood the day before. "Thank you for allowing us to speak," said. His voice was calm and clear. "We know this debate is about us, but we are not here to defend ourselves. We are here to make you an offer." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of worlds. "We have heard the concerns raised about our species. We understand them. Our history is violent. Our planet is dangerous. We have made terrible mistakes and created terrible weapons." He paused. "But we have also learned every disaster taught us something. Every extinction event made the survivors stronger. Every war showed us the cost of hatred and fear. We are not the same species we were 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 1,000,000 years ago. We change, we grow, we improve." Stepped forward, "You have discussed what humanity might do to the galaxy, what threats we might pose, what violence we might bring." Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the chamber. "But have you considered what the galaxy faces without us?" She pulled out her device and projected images above the platform. Stars and planets and galaxies filled the air. "The universe is not safe. Stars explode. Black holes consume worlds. Asteroids drift through space looking for planets to destroy. Diseases evolve and spread. Climates change. Extinction events happen everywhere, not just on Earth." The images showed planets covered in ice, planets burning with radiation, planets cracked and broken. "Your own records show that member worlds have faced catastrophes. The flooding of Prime, the volcanic winter on, the disease outbreak in the spiral arm colonies." Representatives shifted uncomfortably. These were painful memories for many species. "In each of these events, your civilization struggled. You had no experience with such disasters, no knowledge of how to survive them. Let the images fade, but we do." Spoke again. "Earth has been trying to kill us for 4 billion years. We have learned things no other species in the galaxy has learned. We know how to survive when 96% of everything dies. We know how to rebuild when cities turn to ash. We know how to keep going when all hope seems lost." He looked in the audience and nodded slightly. "Researcher asked us how we face each day knowing what has happened to our world. The answer is simple. We face each day because we have faced worse, and we are still here." Stepped forward once more. "This is our offer, not a threat, not a warning, an offer." She spread her hands wide. "Join us, let us share what we have learned. We can teach your species how to prepare for extinction events, how to build shelters that survive asteroid impacts, how to store food and seeds and genetic material, how to maintain hope when everything seems hopeless." The chamber was completely silent. "We know your worlds are safer than ours," continued. "We know you have not faced what we have faced, but the universe is large and old and dangerous. Eventually, every world faces disaster. Eventually, every species must survive or die." Nodded. "When that day comes for your worlds, do you want to face it alone? Or do you want humans standing beside you, sharing everything we have learned in 4 billion years of survival?" He let the question hang in the air. "We are not asking you to accept us despite our violent history. We are asking you to accept us because of it. Our history is not our weakness, it is our strength, and we want to share that strength with you." The humans stood together on the platform, waiting. They had said everything they came to say. The council speaker pulsed for order. "The humans have made their offer. We will now vote on their membership." What happened next surprised everyone, including. The vote was not close, it was not controversial, it was overwhelming. Species after species voted to accept humanity into the Galactic Council. Even representatives who had argued against them the day before changed their positions. The humans had offered something no one else could offer: experience, knowledge, survival. When the final count was announced and showed no emotion, They simply nodded, as if they had expected this outcome all along. After the ceremony found the humans in a quiet corridor. They were talking softly, sharing a moment of private celebration. Ambassador Doctor approached them slowly. "May I speak with you?" They turned to him with warm smiles. "Of course," Researcher said. "What can we do for you?" Struggled to find the right words. "I want to understand something. When you spoke to the council, you were not afraid. You did not beg or plead. You simply made your offer and waited. How did you stay so calm?" Thought about the question for a moment. "Because we have been rejected before," he said. "Our own history is full of groups being rejected, cast out, told they do not belong, but they found new places. They built new communities. They survived." Added, "If the council had rejected us, we would have been disappointed, but we would have continued. We would have found another way. That is what humans do." Nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. "There is a saying on your world," he said. "What does not kill you makes you stronger. I think I understand it now." Placed a hand on shoulder. The gesture was warm and friendly. "You also have much to teach us, Researcher. We are survivors, yes, but we have survived through violence and struggle. Your species have built stable, peaceful civilizations. We can learn from you just as you can learn from us." Smiled. "That is the point of the council, is it not? Different species, sharing knowledge, helping each other grow. Together we become stronger than any of us alone." Felt something shift inside him. The fear he had felt when he first read Earth's data was gone. In its place was something new, hope. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," he said. "I believe you will change everything." Laughed. It was a warm, genuine sound. "We usually do," he said. "We usually do." Together, the three of them walked toward the celebration hall, where representatives from 48 species now waited to welcome humanity into the galactic community. The universe would never be the same. But looking at the two humans walking beside him, thought that might not be a bad thing. Not bad at all.